When Rachel invited her cousin Mia over for a casual sleepover, I didn't think much of it. But as the night unfolded, it became clear I wasn't just an innocent bystander in their plans. Before I knew it, I was the one they were toying with, and things quickly spiraled into something I never saw coming. Rachel and I had been married for several years, and her bond with Mia had always been close. The two of them were inseparable, always laughing, teasing, and sharing moments of their shared childhood. Mia was younger, energetic, and brimming with an infectious charisma that made her a constant presence in our lives. So, when Rachel suggested Mia spend the night, I thought nothing of it. It was just another family evening. Little did I know, it would become a night that would blur lines and change everything. The night began innocently enough. Dinner was casual and lighthearted. The three of us gathered around the table sharing stories and jokes. Rachel, with her usual wit, kept the conversation lively, while Mia chimed in with her playful humor. I felt comfortable, the way one does when surrounded by familiarity. But there was something else, a subtle undercurrent I couldn't quite place. A lingering glance between Rachel and Mia, a shared smile that seemed to hold a secret. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, what could be more innocent than a sleepover between family? As the evening wore on, that subtle tension became harder to ignore. We moved to the living room, the warm glow of the lamps creating a cozy atmosphere. We sat close on the couch, Rachel's arm casually draped over my shoulder, Mia sitting cross-legged nearby. As the evening wore on, the warm glow of the lamps cast an intimate light across the room. Rachel's arm draped over my shoulder while Mia sat cross-legged nearby, her short skirt riding up slightly as she shifted, revealing a glimpse of her smooth thigh. The soft fabric clung to her skin, catching the light, her movements casual, yet undeniably alluring. I felt Rachel's fingers tracing gentle circles on my arm, but my gaze flickered to Mia, her quiet elegance, an intoxicating pull I couldn't ignore. At one point, Rachel's hand brushed mine. It was a small, seemingly innocent gesture, but her fingers lingered a beat too long, her nails grazing my skin in a way that sent a shiver up my spine. I glanced at her, but her expression was perfectly composed, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Mia caught my gaze and smiled, her lips curving in a way that made my stomach flutter. As the movie played on, their energy seemed to shift, becoming more focused, more deliberate. Mia leaned forward, her fingers lightly brushing my knee as she reached for her glass. It was such a fleeting touch, but it left a trail of warmth in its wake. I tried to concentrate on the screen, but I was hyper-aware of their proximity, of the way Rachel's arm tightened slightly around me, of how Mia's gaze seemed to linger. When the movie ended, Rachel turned to me, her eyes sparkling like she was holding back a delicious secret. "Why don't you join us in the guest room tonight?" she asked, her tone light and teasing. But there was an unmistakable intent behind her words. I frowned slightly, unsure if I had misread her. "Join you for what?" Her gaze flicked to Mia, and the moment between them was electric, charged with an unspoken understanding. Mia's smile turned sly, her head tilting just enough to make the air between us hum with possibility. Rachel's fingers traced lazy circles on my arm, her touch featherlight, but maddeningly deliberate. "We thought it might be fun," Rachel said, her voice dropping into a velvet purr. "Just the three of us, a little adventure." My breath hitched, my mind racing to catch up. There was something both playful and daring in the way they watched me, their synchronized intensity almost overwhelming. I opened my mouth to respond, but my voice wouldn't cooperate, silenced by the thrill that rushed through me. Rachel leaned closer, her lips hovering near my ear, her breath warm against my skin. "Why not?" she murmured, each word laced with temptation. "It's just for fun." Mia stepped closer, her gaze steady, unflinching. She was a vision of quiet confidence, her dark eyes steady on mine, daring me to say no. There was no hesitation in her expression, no doubt, only an invitation, bold and unspoken. Rachel stood and extended her hand, her palm open, in a gesture both casual and commanding. "Come on," she urged, her voice soft, a challenge woven into her smile. Something inside me surrendered. I took her hand, and the world seemed to shift. Her grip was firm, her fingers warm, as she led me down the hall, Mia following silently. The sound of her steps, light and steady, added to the surreal charge that filled the space around us. The guest room was bathed in soft light, casting long, honeyed shadows across the walls. The air was thick, heavy with anticipation that seemed to wrap around me, pulling me deeper into their orbit. Rachel guided me to the bed, her hand never leaving mine as she sat beside me, her eyes dancing with mischief. She turned to Mia, her voice dropping into a whisper. "Shall we?" Mia stepped forward, her smile softening into something deeper, something that made my heart race. I couldn't take my eyes off her as she crossed the room. Rachel's hand brushed my arm, a small grounding gesture, but the heat of her touch sent a ripple through me. "Relax," Rachel murmured, her voice a soothing balm against the pounding in my chest. "Let it happen." Mia's hand found mine, her fingers threading between my own, her grip light yet commanding. There was an undeniable electricity in the way her touch lingered, her warmth grounding me even as my pulse thundered in my ears. Rachel leaned closer, her breath ghosting across my skin, her voice low and intimate. "Do you trust me?" I nodded, the words caught somewhere in my throat. My body, however, had already decided, leaning into the heat of their closeness, surrendering to the intoxicating rhythm of their presence. Rachel kissed me first, her lips soft and sure, tasting faintly of wine and something sweeter. Her hand cupped my cheek, her thumb brushing against my jawline, with an intimacy that unraveled me. My breath faltered as Mia's presence grew closer, her warmth a quiet hum at my side. When Rachel pulled back, Mia moved in, her lips brushing mine, in a kiss that was tentative at first, then bold, deepening as my heart pounded. Her scent, a blend of jasmine and something more earthy, filled the space between us, and I melted into her touch. Rachel's hands slid to my shoulders, her fingers kneading gently, her touch equal parts grounding and incendiary. Mia's hand traced a path to my chest, her touch featherlight, teasing, sending sparks through me with every caress. They moved together, fluid and synchronized, as if orchestrating a symphony of sensation. Rachel's lips trailed along my jaw, her kisses warm and lingering. Mia's fingers brushed against my arm, slow and deliberate, leaving a line of fire in their wake. My breathing grew heavier, each touch pulling me further under, deeper into the moment. The boundaries between us dissolved, replaced by a quiet, consuming connection that left me trembling with need. "Don't hold back," Rachel whispered, her voice a velvet promise against my skin. Mia's hand tightened slightly in mine, her gaze steady and burning, with an intensity that made my chest tighten. I was completely at their mercy, and I didn't want it any other way. As the night deepened, the air between us grew impossibly charged, a current neither of us could deny. Rachel's gaze lingered on mine, her smile soft but full of promise. Mia's fingers lightly brushed my arm, her touch like a secret whispered in the dark. Every glance, every gesture felt deliberate, like they were building something larger than all of us. A moment suspended in time. Rachel leaned back slightly, her movements languid as she tilted her head toward Mia. "I think we've kept her guessing long enough," she teased, her voice low, like a purr. Mia chuckled softly, her eyes glinting with mischief as she turned toward me. "Do you think she's ready?" she asked, her tone featherlight, but the intensity in her gaze made my breath hitch. "I'm standing right here," I managed, my voice faltering slightly under their scrutiny. My body was alive, every nerve on fire, as their attention remained fixed on me, as though I was the center of their universe. Rachel moved closer, her thigh brushing mine, her hand finding its way to my shoulder. "We've noticed you watching," she murmured, her fingers tracing slow circles that sent shivers down my spine. "You've been curious, haven't you?" My words faltered as Mia leaned in, her breath warm against my cheek, her presence overwhelming. Her hand rested lightly on my leg, her touch deliberate but unhurried, as though she was savoring every second. "Curiosity isn't a bad thing," Mia whispered, her voice soft yet commanding. "But there's something about you, something that feels like more than just curiosity." Rachel's fingers slid down my arm, her touch like liquid heat, and I felt my body betray me, leaning into her warmth. "We've felt it too," she added, her lips brushing against my ear. "This connection, it's impossible to ignore, isn't it?" I nodded, unable to speak, the weight of their presence rendering me helpless. They were magnetic, their confidence pulling me into their orbit as the world outside the room faded to nothing. Rachel's hand tilted my chin up, her eyes searching mine. "We don't have to rush," she said, her voice a soothing melody. "But if you want this, if you want us, you have to let go. Trust us." The words were both an invitation and a challenge, and I felt the weight of the moment settle over me. My heart raced as Mia leaned closer, her lips hovering near mine, her eyes filled with a mixture of playfulness and intensity. And then, as if time slowed, Mia closed the distance, her kiss soft and exploring, her fingers weaving into my hair, her scent sweet and intoxicating, wrapped around me as her touch left sparks in its wake. Rachel's hands slid down my back, her touch grounding me, steadying me as the tension between the three of us became a tangible thing, a thread connecting us in ways I couldn't begin to describe. The night unfolded like a dance, each moment deliberate, every move synchronized as if we were reading an unspoken script. Their touches were gentle, yet demanding, their kisses exploring and teasing, pushing me to the edge of control without ever letting me tip over. Rachel whispered against my ear, her voice rich with promise. "You don't have to hide. Not with us. We see you." Mia's lips curved into a soft smile as she leaned back slightly, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on my arm. "And we like what we see," she added, her tone playful but sincere. I was caught between them, their combined presence overwhelming but impossibly perfect. There was no doubt, no hesitation, just the pure, undeniable pull of connection. The room seemed to pulse with energy, and I surrendered, letting them guide me, trusting that wherever this path led, it was exactly where I was meant to be. As dawn began to break, the first light filtering softly through the curtains, the three of us lay entwined, our breath steady, our hearts full. There was no need for words. The silence between us was filled with understanding, a bond that felt unbreakable. Rachel traced a finger along my jawline, her smile soft. "You belong here," she said simply, and for the first time in years, I believed it. Mia pressed a gentle kiss to my temple, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is only the beginning." And as the morning sun rose higher, casting golden light over the three of us, I knew they were right. This was a new chapter, a leap into the unknown, but it was a leap I was ready to take, hand in hand with them.